Hi, ladies. I can't believe we're back in doing Walk With Me podcast today. It's been a while. I'm really excited to invite you guys on this walk today. And it's a rare occasion. Every once in a while, I'll bring in someone awesome to walk with us. And today we have my very good friend, Sarah Jenks. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Hello. I'm so excited to have this conversation. One, because I feel like we already tried to start and there's so many things to talk about.
I know.
But two, there's certain friendships in my life where when we have conversations, I recognize there's actually a lot of women that don't get to have these kinds of conversations and are missing these kinds of conversations. And so I'm just super excited to invite this woman walking with us into this intimate conversation and to include her. And I just know that we're going to talk about some things that are important to talk about, vent about with each other. We probably need today, and grateful to get to open that up to you guys who are listening, because Sarah is, as I mentioned, someone I've wanted to have on this Walk With Me podcast for a while, and also just really genius at what's up for me right now, which is getting out of our head into our heart, making life more sacred. And so I'm just going to jump right in. So excited you're here, Sarah. Tell us where you're going to be walking at today.
I'm currently walking circles around my temple. And I live outside of Boston in a town called Medfield on a farm. And we moved to this sacred land about 3 years ago, and we have a temple on the property. So it's this big round building, and because we're sort of in the middle of nowhere, I don't have any service outside of the Wi-Fi zone. So I'm just like pacing in circles, but it actually feels so good because I don't usually take up the whole space in the temple. It's a practice that I'm trying to cultivate. And so it feels good just to sort of be circling.
I can actually imagine that, like, just also moving energy. I'm doing the same, and my space is not as beautiful and big as the Moon Lodge is. But it's drizzling outside, and same. I didn't want any interruption to our conversation, so I wanted like the best Wi-Fi today. But it's like I can feel that, and in case you are walking with us and you can't get outside, totally okay. You can also walk in your space. But just to not brush past the fact that you're walking in your temple space that is right outside of your home, I just have to say, if you guys get a chance, check out Sarah's website and find some pictures of the Moon Lodge. And I'm sure you have a blog somewhere, the whole story of how you found this space and came into
I do
it
somewhere. I don't really know where it is, but if you Google Sarah Jenks Moon Lodge, something will come up. It's a cool story.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story, and I would love for you guys to look into it, because I'm sure there's some of you who have a dream, which you really planted in my heart, to also create my own temple space, because it's amazing. We've had some incredible experiences in your Moon Lodge, like New Year's Eve sacred rituals with our husbands and couples, and my baby blessing way for Autumn, your blessing way,
my blessing,
Hazel. So and obviously so many more. Oh my God, that priestess circle that we did, the Queen of Death. That was a good one. Okay, so this is what's been up that I wanted to dive right into with you. First, I know we both are coming to this feeling a little raw and messy. I woke up in the middle of the night last night and couldn't sleep for 2 hours. And actually part of it was like, not that anxiety, but that voice spiral that I was like thinking this. I have one of those days today, which is like, no woman could do, but we think we can, which is a great topic to have with you.
I'm literally having the same day.
Okay, amazing.
Yes,
so
that's the perfect way to explain it.
Yeah, so it was like I laid awake and I was like, I'm not sleeping, and that really sucks because tomorrow I need to be on my A game because I have back-to-back appointments scheduled. So when I have things scheduled, that's, I think, when I feel the most anxiety, because it feels like it's not flexible, and like I want to find an aligned way to show up, but it feels masculine because the structure is there. So it's like, I've got my kids, I've got my 10 a.m. with you. That feels so important. We are doing this podcast and then filming content for your membership, Whole Woman. And then I've got a team meeting, which is a big team meeting because I'm launching my membership, the Heartwork Collective, right now. And I need to like show up with a plan for my 4 team members. And then later in the day, I have a one-on-one client who I want to show up fully for, and I need to prep for her session before. Among like 10 other goals that I have to achieve between those appointments and things to complete. So I was up in my mind just thinking about all those things. What do I want to talk to Sarah about? And what do I need to list for the team? And like, it just made me think right away, like, this is happening because of the conversation we're going to have, because we just have this expectation that we're supposed to be able to do all of that. And it's intense. And I really sat there going, it's okay. It's okay. Whatever doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So anyways, as I say that, I'm curious if you want to share like where you're coming from, or anything that comes up around that for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny that we're sort of in this similar boat where I was up from 3 to 4:30 last night and couldn't fall back asleep. I had a really bad headache and was just tossing and turning. And my nanny was out yesterday, which always drains me when
by the way, same thing. I was all in with the kids yesterday. I always am on Wednesdays. That's my day. Yeah.
And then I woke up this morning and she told me she was going to be out again today. And I completely, support her. She has some important family stuff going on. And I too had 2 meetings today, and I have a long coaching call for my high level program, Emerge, this afternoon. And I had no childcare for my youngest. And so my 2 older children are in this little camp that we run here on the farm. And so I just ended up leaving my 2-year-old with the camp counselor, who's my cousin, who I love and trust, but she was like crying when I left. And it's just like, ugh. And it's, I'm the sort of person who I have a really hard time going like back and forth from work to motherhood without a break. And so I'm sort of like, I left her crying. I'm here with you for 2 hours, and I have to go back with Hazel for 45 minutes, make sure she gets down for a nap so that I can get onto my coaching call. And, it's a lot to just wear these 2 hats of motherhood and entrepreneurship when our support system, that we depend on isn't there. And I definitely noticed myself.
For many people who don't even set that up. I mean,
oh my gosh. I mean,
put
that
there.
is a whole thing. That's a whole thing. And that's, that's what I talk about in my program.
Well, you're a genius at that. That's why I mentioned it, because like you really are such an inspiration of what it means to create that. So, but even when you create it, and you get through that, there's still a challenge.
Yeah. And I think the thing, and this is what we were talking about before we started recording, is, I used to have that feeling of, I should be able to do this. I should be able to do both. Why am I complaining? And, all the work that I've done, I mean, really just in the past like 9 months, is really coming to terms with no woman should be expected, 1, to parent all by herself. That is a completely unnatural thing. And because we evolved to parent in community, in village, where we all live together in one house with other women who had children and elders and people who didn't have children who would help us take care of our kids. And also to add all work and providing on top of that pressure to also keep our children alive. It actually is, can really mess with our central nervous system. So my practice has just been compassion and just taking it one day at a time. You know what I mean? And giving myself space to complain, and cry sometimes and get really frustrated with my kids and have them watch extra TV and, you know, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So when you say that, is that the practice of compassion then? Are those pieces? Is there
Yes.
any other layers to it that may be natural to you, but that you can kind of look at, like for people who are not used to compassion practices?
Right.
Like,
Right.
what's the path and what does that actually look like? How do you
Well,
work with that?
You know, I think we just have to really look at really what the patriarchy tells us we should be able to do and how we should act as mothers, which is just these like perfectionist angel beings that are just calm and patient all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I think like it's so great to strive for patience and creating a grounding, loving household. And if we are not getting our needs met and the support that we need, we can't also put pressure on ourselves to be like that. So I think it's compassion, but it's like also just having an understanding of how me and I feel like most women have been brainwashed with these expectations that just are hurtful and unattainable. Does that make sense?
Totally. I feel like I feel like what you're saying is it's also the witnessing and the knowing of that. Like once you actually open your mind to the fact that this belief system is so infiltrated in our culture and in the United States and some other countries too. Once you're aware of that, it really creates such an open space where compassion can actually move, and it requires the awareness first. Like, I think that's what helped me shift last night, because if I really break down the moment, it was like I was sleeping in the other room with Autumn because she will not sleep in her crib right now. Wants to be next to me, and she's waking up every hour.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
I did fall asleep and then woke up and was just feeling like I need and have to have 8 hours sleep to be able to be productive and show up the way I want to tomorrow. And so I was completely resistant to what was happening in the moment. And, you know, it was making me upset about motherhood, that I don't have this like 11-month-old baby that sleeps in her crib and is sleep trained, and that I can, you know, sleep next to my husband and go to sleep and wake up and, you know, have my care. Again, I have care scheduled today, which I didn't yesterday. So I'm excited about that. But what does it matter if I'm a mess? I'm so exhausted. And then I was like, Jay, you can show up on an hour of sleep. It'll be fine. If you can't sleep, because what it turned into was actually inspiration, but I was resistant to that when I was like, you need to have solid sleep. You cannot get up right now. You need to sleep. So it was like an ownership of it. Like, oh, actually I'm having ideas and thoughts about tomorrow that would feel good to not just lay here with, but write out or get up for a moment. And then also, like, because I was stopped having this expectation of how I should feel about being woken up by Autumn or how she should be as a baby, it turned into this sweet moment where, like, I was like, this is a rare moment. Like, at these little nights where she's a baby are going to pass. I know that so quickly. And like, I don't know, I just calmed, I nursed her. It was like sweet, how sweet that I get to sleep alone with her, a moment, just her and I. The whole thing switched because of that awareness of expectation, what I should do, how it should be, what it has to look like, and it's all on me. And I don't know if that kind of, you know, I was trying to find like a real moment of how compassion can come in and how it can really change pretty instantly the experience we're having, even though nothing about the experience actually changed.
Right. I love that. And then one thing I want to say that's coming through for me really clearly right now, and I think this probably will lead us into the topic that I know we really want to cover today, is that, you know, we're going to have moments when things are hard.
Yeah.
You know, and if there's a pattern of things being hard, that's when I say we need to look at what's actually happening in your life. because like what I really want to name and what I want to make sure we're differentiating for your listeners is that like these are like isolated moments, not that we are like using compassion to cover up actual problems that are systemic in our life. Does that make sense?
Say a little bit more. Maybe use like an example if there's
yeah. Okay. So here's an example. Like, let's say Autumn was up every hour, every night. I would say to you, hey, Janine, like maybe you do want to sleep train her. Or I want you to know that you do have a choice to sleep train her or to have Brent sleep with her or to hire a night doula so that you can have your brain available for you during the day to work. So, because I think another thing that women do is we put up with pain because we've been brainwashed to believe life is supposed to be so super hard. And there are a lot of people on this planet that are held back by systems that do make life super hard. And what I see is that there are also a lot of women that aren't held back by systems or circumstances that choose to stay in a place of pain instead of seeing the choice and making a change so that they can come into a place of thriving instead of surviving.
Yes. So we are getting into exactly what I was talking about when like we have conversations that most women I feel like don't get to have. So in our relationship, what I experience as you share that is number one, in a lot of friendships, what will happen with me, like, is if I share something like that, my friend who is a mother will probably be like, oh my God, me too. It's so hard, and not reflect or look deeper at that. And I think when we can do that, there's growth there that starts to show us a path to self-starting leadership and literally breaks the pattern. Because now with that reflection you shared to me, I get to ask like, what's true about last night? Is that a temporary experience or is a pattern? And actually it is a pattern. It is something that now like has been happening a lot with her. And so it's powerful in sisterhood to receive those kinds of reflections where we can hold that kind of space for each other to move into breaking that pattern and breaking that system instead of perpetuating it. And I found that's what I wanted to talk with you a little bit about self-starting leadership and what that looks like, especially when it comes to making decisions. And how to make those decisions not from that brainwashed perpetual pattern place, and to check in on yourself around that. Because we got to hang out a couple weeks ago, and it was literally a reflection you shared just like that helped me to make a decision. I'll share it in a moment, but I want to pause there because I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to jam on that. And like that invitation is challenging. You have to be up for it. Like I'm always up for self-starting leadership. So I receive that like, okay, which one of the bullet points did you give me that I can like do right now? I'm like, can I ask Brent? Do I hire a sleep trainer? Like, thank you for the reflection. I'm in it. But, I wonder what just your experience with that when you catch yourself in something like that. So let me ask you that. Can I ask you? Well, go ahead. Share first.
Yeah.
And I have a question.
I mean, and I think, there's like two things. Like one, I think that what I always try to do is point out that you have a choice, not necessarily not the choice you should make. Right. Like I can always share the choice I would make, but I think a big part of this is just, when we're having these conversations with our friends, is just to point out where you're seeing there's like a pattern, or they're stuck, or they're not thinking in a choice paradigm. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think that's one thing. And then the thing that's motivating for me is like, I'm all about the evolution of women's power. And, you know, how can we every day evolve into feeling our own power, remembering how powerful we are. And a big part of that is just recognizing where we're in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a stand for women thriving, because when women thrive, we have extra energy to do our work in the world. And so, like, for me, it's just like always coming from that place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. And I think that a big time when that shows up is when we are feeling the invitation to make a decision. And so often what I see when people get stuck is they, like you said, when we take ourselves out of there being a choice, which I think in the time that we're in right now, things are so uncertain. A lot of people they like wait as if we have to wait for higher leadership to make decisions, as if like we can't decide or we can't be in the driver's seat until those things are there. And I was feeling I was taking myself out of that space too. Like, oh, I can't initiate my choice and embody my choice until I get this information from these outside sources first. Right. And I think actually what I noticed is it's actually the opposite. And that's when we least think we can do it, is when we most need to say, I have a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you embody that, that's when your life fucking changes. That's when your confidence grows. That's when patterns shift and dissolve. It's literally that moment of like, when you least think you have a choice, going, what if I did though? What if I did have a choice here?
Exactly.
What would be available? And that was really powerful for you to name.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah. I know you've done some stuff like that recently. I think, like, I know in uncertain times you have embodied that. You have said, actually, I'm going to make a choice, even though there's not choices being made around me. So I'm wondering if there's one that feels like really relevant or up for you. Like, is there a challenge or an initiation or a discomfort somewhere right now? Or was there one recently that involved making a decision or taking self-starting leadership or realizing you had a choice when, like, you might have initially not been thinking of it that way?
Yeah, totally. So this piece was around school for my kids. And, we were looking at so many unknowns with, what was public school going to be like. Marshall went to the public kindergarten here in town. We moved to the town that we're in because the public schools are so great. We,
which makes you feel like you can't shift that choice.
Right,
like,
exactly.
One
so
little
there are
layer
like all
like,
these, right. So like we moved to the town because of the public schools. Both me and Jonathan grew up in very academically oriented families. We went to one of the top schools in the country. Jonathan's a freaking doctor. Like, we're the most traditionally educated people on the planet. And my grandmother was a teacher. They're like always talking about the importance of public schools. I had in my head that my parents would be like up in arms if we decided to not send our kids to public school. Like, it was I had all of these rules in my head. And then when they started talking about the guidelines for school, and we were witnessing Marshall, who's my oldest, who's going to be in first grade, do the distance learning, I was just like, holy moly, this is just not working. And so I got together with a friend of mine, and I guess I first took some time for myself, and I said, and this is literally the exercise I do all the time. It's like, if I knew my parents were going to support me no matter what, if I knew that My kids were going to be okay no matter what. What would I choose? What would be my ideal?
Mhm.
And also the other thing, I thought I could either send the kids to school or homeschool them myself. So then I had this sort of like binary rules of like, these are the two boxes I can put them in.
Mhm.
And then I went back to my practice and I said, oh, I'm realizing that I'm doing this thing. I call it the like forest strategy, where women do this thing like, we have a forest in front of us and each tree is a rule that we have. So like one tree would be my parents. One tree would be that we live in a school out of town with great public schools. Another tree would be Jonathan's opinion. I was also really scared about what Jonathan was going to say. He's my husband.
Mhm.
And, would Marshall miss his friends? Like all these are trees. And what women do is then we try to plan our life around the trees. And so we're bending over backwards and like going left and right and just sort of taking this like weird circuitous path. And so I did the exercise that I teach all the time in Whole Woman, which is I mowed down all the trees.
Mhm.
I said, what if there are no rules? What is the path I would chart?
Mhm.
And I came up with this like beautiful vision of we have guest teachers come in and teach our kids this like earthy, grounded curriculum. And we have a forest school teacher come and they're playing in the woods and they're doing all this nature science and wild math. And then, the moms stay after and we like build fires together and teach the kids how to cook. And we sing around a fire. We bring back our ancestral ways. And these women are super magical. And we're, all of a sudden in my vision, I'm creating this non-residential community. And it just becomes so much more than school.
Mhm.
And so I created this vision and I talked about it with Jonathan and he's just crying, like so excited about it. We
Mhm.
talked to another family, we partner up with another family. Just so happens like one of my daughter's friends' moms used to do stuff like this. We called her, she's all in to be one of the teachers. My friend, which I didn't even like really know, like has a master's in early childhood education. She wants to teach the kids how to read. We have like 2 other families joining us. Like all of a sudden it's just happening. And the best part is I call my parents and tell them, and they're like, that is the most beautiful, amazing thing ever. We want to be teachers.
Oh my God.
And like, I completely made up the whole thing,
Right.
and that's what we do because it's just our parents and our partner and our closest friends are just mirrors for our deepest, darkest, shadowy parts.
Mhm.
And once I like worked it all out on my own and I made the steps, I made my own decision and I chose me,
Mhm.
I realized they were like so on board and excited and celebrating me.
Mhm.
So that's my example.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, on the receiving end, when you talked about it, I felt the magic so much. Like, people, that's the magnet. That's the magnet
Right.
in our life that makes people like just want to be with us and what makes us inspirational. And if you're a business owner, it's literally how you should be creating and marketing and putting out, because it's a magnet. And when you said it like went right into the decision I'm working with. And I was like, well, maybe I need to move to Medfield so that I can have my kids go into that. Like, she just named something that's deep inside of me. And I do think that forest that you're attuning to is like a collective one. Like, I'm sure many people hearing that are like, wow, I didn't know I could have that choice. And then 2, but here's the next part. People will like have that vision, but then not do anything about it. But then be like, that would be way too hard or too complicated.
Right.
So I wonder if there's anything you would mention in there of like, how did you manage that, like to get yourself to take the first step? I also recognize like when you realize you're magical, I think you get used to the fact that synchronicities and signs like you receive happen. So I just want to name that. Like, you don't really have to know the how, but I do wonder if there's any I know you work with women who must need a little boost there at that moment. So you have the visualization, you see it, you feel it. What actually has you move with it instead of just leaving it, in the meditation practice?
Totally. Well, I think the thing is that women have been brainwashed to believe we have to do everything ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our worth has been judged on how many people we're supporting, how much we're doing at home, how productive we are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and that brainwashing is deliberately put in place to make women exhausted so that we don't actually get around to our soul's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So the work, and I know you talk about this all the time, is just the importance of community, of network, and just this knowing of, okay, I don't have to figure this all out on my own. I'm just holding the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've experienced is that when I get out of this place of like, I want to do it all by myself and like, I'm going to make this happen and like, I'm going to be a leader and like, everyone's going to think I'm so awesome because I did all this work.
Mm-hmm.
I can be like, hey, Jonathan, like I have a vision. I need some help. Call my best friend. Hey, I have a vision. I need some help.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, a lot just ends up happening more easily. And then whenever I'm writing a vision, I also literally write this all down because like that's part of the magic is details and feeling it, right? So we need to really picture what it feels like. And then at the end, I just say like, and great mother, please, please, please make this easy. Mm-hmm. Like, please show me. I have no idea how this is going to happen. So will you just make it happen for me? Mm-hmm. And, like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I also have a level of privilege that most people don't. I am a like well-off white woman, and that's a really important thing to name. Mm-hmm. And so there's always roadblocks for different people depending on their circumstances. And I've also seen amazing things happen when we can suspend all of the rules and the trees and the systems and still go into the vision.
Mm-hmm. It seems like to me too, what I recognize, we just had this decision-making call, and the way I kind of describe this process is it starts with intuition, which is spending that time with yourself and those divine messages, like that visualization. And then the next stage is innovation. It's like doing it a different way. That's the invitation to like dream it up.
Yeah, I love that. And then
it's like emergence. It's being in emergent leadership, actually. Like, okay, now that I've seen, felt, thought of these things, what would it look like to embody that and put it into place if it doesn't exist based off what's happening right now? And I only do that first with this rule that our friend Nisha gave to me years ago when I was in her mastermind of never be sad alone. I have to tell myself that to break the pattern, because now I just say I am not meant to now figure this out, map it out, reverse engineer it, put it into goals, go into action, like that type A lone warrior woman. I've broken that pattern. And so now it's like, who can I take this to? Just exactly the moment we had before you came. I recognize I'm struggling with this decision about my home and what to do. And it was like, great, Sarah's coming today. I'm just going to tell her like what's up, what the vision is. And, I just wanted to say, like, you said something, first of all, our kids are running around the yard. You pulled out your cards on the picnic blanket and we did a reading, and it wasn't necessarily anything that came through strong from the cards, but it just opened up that sacred energy to get more intuitive and playful and out of our heads. And I think the head is that forest. The head is the space where like all the beliefs and patterning exist. So you want to work with that a little bit, like you did, like you want to see what's happening in there and give it some attention and quiet it, but then go into the heart.
Yep.
That's the hard work, you know? And then you said, you just were like, Jay, it was such a simple reflection, but I wouldn't have gotten it if I didn't like bring it to the table in our conversation. You know, you're like, you and Brent professionally have outgrown this house, and you and your family has outgrown this house.
Yeah.
So it's like this pattern, this thing, this change that I didn't want to make. It really became clear to me, that reflection, like, okay, you're right. It's not our forever house. So why not choose to work with that now, even though it's a big initiation to go forward with that. And it was like 3 days later, we were putting our house on the market, and we've been in the process, you know,
so great.
It's so powerful. So I wonder if you could, though, I wanted to say one more thing about that. So that piece of community, I think that's a step people can start with too, if they don't have that yet, is just establishing that kind of relationship with your partner where you just say, I'm not going to be sad in this alone. I'm no longer going to think that it's only my responsibility to figure out how to make Autumn sleep at night. Like, I can trust that my partner, you know, can figure that out, even if I have a belief that it's mine. And then sisterhood, you know, like really finding the women that can think like this and not just like nag about it, but actually create a new opening. So much of what you talked about today was that visualization process and those questions. And I wondered, something I wanted to do for everybody was have you, if you're up for it, lead a little bit of a visualization practice before we close. How do you feel about that? Are you up for that?
Yes, totally.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be so powerful. I don't know if we want to if we could do it walking.
Yeah, I can do it walking. I'm doing, so I lead these visualizations during moon circles that I have in the Moon Lodge here. And what I actually do when I'm leading the visualizations is exactly what I'm doing now, is I walk in a circle while the women are in their journey. So it's definitely easy for me to do it in this way.
Yeah. And can women do this walking, or would you prefer that we all like?
Yeah, I mean, and I think sometimes these are the things that, I mean, everyone's different. You may be able to do it while you're walking. It may be better to pause and go home and lie down and listen, or do both.
Perfect.
That sounds like a good plan.
So check in with your intuition, everyone, and you'll know whether you should keep walking or lay in the grass or in the sand, wherever you are, or pause and save this for when you get home.
Beautiful. All right. So I just want to invite you to find a rhythm in your walking. Like, it may just be like slowing it down, so it's almost at the pace of your heartbeat. And so you just have this like bump, 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 like the pace is important. And what's coming through right now is that, you know, our heartbeat when we're at rest beats at the same sort of frequency as the earth. And so we can sort of come into this, this alignment and this harmony with the frequency and pace of our mother. Or you can start to lie down and close your eyes and just notice your breath. And bring your spirit, your awareness, which for a lot of us often floats above our head, like a foot above our head, down into our pelvic bowl. Our friend Becca Piastrelli calls this the cauldron in our body, our cauldron chakra. And then either from the base of your cauldron, or if you're walking out of the bottoms of your feet, you can start to see roots growing down and connecting into the earth. When I walk, I love seeing every time my foot touches the earth, just roots shooting out and grounding me and connecting me with the earth. And so just to see your roots growing deeper and deeper, And your breath getting slower. And in your mind's eye, I'd love for you to see yourself in this open field. And the sun is overhead. And it's the perfect temperature. And there's grass and wildflowers and beautiful trees all around you. And then over to the left, there's a thick forest with these huge trees. And you start walking slowly over to the forest. And as you get closer, there's this little opening. And you realize as you get closer and closer to this opening that it's a trailhead. And around this trailhead is this arch. And I want you to notice what the arch is made out of, if there are shapes or colors, patterns. Are there anything tied to this arch? Really notice any signs or symbols, materials, colors that are here. And then when you're ready, I invite you to walk through this archway, over this threshold, and into the forest. And as you're walking this path through the forest, I invite you to notice if any animals come across your path. If you see any specific plant life, any birds or trees. And then just up ahead, hanging on a tree branch, you notice some clothing. And as you get closer, you realize that these are the most beautiful, sacred clothes you've ever seen. Notice the colors and the textures. And right there in the forest, I invite you to, in your mind's eye, undress, put down everything that you're carrying, to take a moment and feel your naked body, the skin against the air in this sacred forest. And then slip on the clothes that have been left here for you. Feel how easily they slip over your head, how perfectly they fit, how comfortable you feel. And then continue on your way. And soon you start to see the end of the trail getting brighter and brighter. And your eyes adjust to the sun, and you come out into the most beautiful view and scene you've ever seen. Take some time to look around, notice what's there. And in the middle of this grand scene is the most incredible house you've ever seen. Take some time from the distance to just really let it come into form. Notice the shape and the windows and the colors. If there are gardens and doors. And slowly make your way over and find the door. And as you open the door, you're met with a smell. And as you open the door a little bit more, you're greeted by the sounds of the people you love the most, people you may know already from this lifetime, and people that may have yet to come. And you just are listening to their joy. And just take some time to walk around the house. Perhaps you want to go into the kitchen and open the fridge and see what foods are there for you, what foods are left out on the counter. Is the table set for a meal? Maybe you want to go into an office or a creative space and notice what work is left open on the desk. And now maybe you want to go into your living room and see who's in there, playing, talking, greeting you, what it feels like in this gathering space in your house. And then you may want to go into your bedroom and just witness all of the comforts that are there to help you rest and feel peaceful, to help you feel sensual and beautiful, to help you feel grounded and at peace. And then just take some time to notice how you feel walking around. If there's any other rooms you want to find, any other buildings on the land. And then I invite this house in your mind's eye to give you a sign. Could be an object or a shape or an animal that's going to tell you when you're close to the house. That's going to be a breadcrumb along your path in this waking world. So notice what that symbol is. And then I invite you to take one last look around, walk outside, and come back to the path. And then back to the field. And to take some deep breaths. And start to wiggle your toes. To come back to what you're looking at. And to slowly open your eyes and to land back in the now. How was that?
I just have tears streaming, like from so early on. Yeah, it was so powerful.
I love, so when I do these, like there's some things that are the same, and then a lot of things are different. So I've actually never seen a house want to give people a sign before.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was really cool that came through. And so what that is like, so when I was doing it, what I saw was the house gave me a penny. And so what that means is that when I see pennies, that's marking when I'm getting closer to this dream. Right. And so if you were given a feather, like keep your eye open for feathers. It will lead you on the path. And they're not always like the actual thing. You know, it could be a picture of a feather or someone just is like talking about it all the time, just to notice the little breadcrumbs. So I thought that was really cool. And then the archway doesn't always come through. And what's fun when we have things like that, the shapes and the animals and the plants, like this is all a language that, you know, you and I study as priestesses, but that we're all meant to know and understand. You know, our ancestors knew the symbology of animals and plants and sacred geometry. And so it's just to remember like what was on the arch, because it's like that's symbolizing the threshold we have to walk over in order to even be available for this to happen.
Oh, so powerful.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that this is also not the language of the head. It really is of the heart. So like when you're in it, there was a lot of things I noticed that like do not make sense to the head.
Totally.
And actually it's when you go, cool, what doesn't make sense about this to my head? Like, what could that be? That's when you start to learn to speak the language, which like will never be found in your mind. Like when you talked about the clothing, for example, and you said it's sacred, like beautiful, the most beautiful clothing you've ever seen. Like the clothing for me was a worn out pair of tennis shoes with holes in it and like a stained up shirt. And I was like, my mind was like, this is wrong. That's not what she said. She said this is like sacred, beautiful clothing. And so then I had to like move into my heart. It was like a moment in the meditation. It was like, okay, great. My head can't figure that out. But what about my heart? What does it mean? And that's when emotion came. So like got a few messages. It was like, well, part of that is like, what if you don't believe you deserve something beautiful? Like you get the worn out rags, like that was left for you. It's like, okay, that could be one thing I'm looking at, one belief, one like tree to mow down, you know?
Yeah.
But then the other one was like, but what if the dirty tennis shoes and the t-shirt is sacred? And what if actually that is the most beautiful clothing? So then it was like an invitation of like, well, what if like you being out in nature and dirty and rugged and like you know, that shirt and those shoes are worn because you're out in the elements.
Yeah.
What if, and it's simple, it doesn't have to be like crazy, you know, it's comfortable and simple. And then there was like medicine in that. So it's like what you see, if you try to decipher it with your brain or make it fit into like the rules, the language is always beneath that, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
Oh my God. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think that like houses hold so much. And it's not that like everyone's dream is to have a new house. Like that's not what this is about. It's to like feel, it's like houses in itself. It's like my friend Donna always used to say that it's like your bigger body. And so it's almost like our house that we see is like a stand-in for our life and our spirit and our soul. It's like the compartments of who we are and the things we hold dear. And so that's why I love, like, and we can always go back to this place. Like, I love taking a half an hour to rummage through the office in this dream space to discover, like, what am I working on? Like, what is my spirit showing me that I need to work on? And, you know, like, I've had a very, very long relationship with emotional eating and body, you know, disorders, and going into the fridge and like seeing what my body actually wants and how it's presented to me and how it's just like these you know, sacred, sensual, delicious feasts of just the most healthy, nourishing food has helped me like really feed and nourish myself instead of constantly be in this place of punishment. So there's so much here that we can do. And like focus on like different areas of our life and different things that we're struggling with.
Yes, like just the door, the people that are in the space, who are, I loved that, like who are already in your life and who you're calling in, the looking at the desk, just the open question of what other room didn't you explore? I like take you into the most relevant space that is asking for your intuition and innovation there. And like literally your innovation might be like what was on the desk. It's like there for you.
Totally. And like, so I did a version of this at a Tony Robbins event. And I had a sneakers and t-shirt moment where like I saw this like super contemporary modern house. And I was like, ew, I need to live in like a farmhouse that was like built in the 1750s. And, you know, I had this like whole head dream about my house, but my heart showed me this modern contemporary house. And I thought it was so weird. And then fast forward like 7 years later, I come to see the house that I'm in now. And I walk into the living room and it's the exact thing I saw in that vision.
Amazing.
And, you know, my heart was trying to prepare me for this moment, because if I had never done that, I probably would have walked into this house and said, it's not mine. But it so is, you know, and we're going to renovate. So it's like not such a weird modern house anymore, but it's like, I needed to still live here without renovating for a while. So we like, when we don't drop into the heart, we can like miss these clues and warnings, and it helps us in our regular waking life recognize things as ours when we normally would just pass it by.
Oh my God, it's so powerful, and what I feel is like it's so easy to miss it. You know, it's so important that we bring.
To miss it.
Oh my God, it's so easy to miss it, which is why we have to like do the work to live from our heart space, that magical space you speak of, that intuitive space, because we just end up living a life that's not ours when we don't take these moments. And then just the true magic that happens when you are able to make that subtle shift and you don't miss the sign and you're awake enough to see it, and like, you know, feeling powerful enough to respond to it and you know, follow the guidance, say yes to it. Oh my God, it's just what we're here for. It's what we're here like for. Literally right there. It's one little side step, one little drop down from that head in, and so much opens up.
And I love that you just said that, because there's one thing that like I just had a big aha moment, is that because like I tell myself all the time, what if I miss it? What if I miss it? And you know that I do this with work and my impact that I'm having in the world. And what I'm realizing now in this moment is that it's easy to miss when we're asleep and we're not doing this work. But when we're awake, when we're in the heart, when we're doing this sacred work, when we're going into the vision, we can't miss it, because it's in like the reality that we're walking in all the time. And so I'm just having a moment of reminding myself with like my big dreams that I'm going after is I can't miss it, because I am committed to being awake. And even though I don't know how it's going to happen and I can't see everything that clearly, because I'm awake, because I'm just committed to this work, I have to trust that I'm not going to miss it, that I'm not going to miss the signs, the breadcrumbs, the direction, because I'm committed to like not having to do everything myself.
And what I love about that, that's so important, is that, you know, as you're talking about, like, see it in you, I know it in me, and why we're drawn to what I teach is walk your talk. Like, you're not doing a disservice for yourself, your family, your business by taking the space to do this deep healing work, to play with the sacred, to meditate, to dance, to indulge in the most beautiful self-care. It's the most progressive thing you could ever do.
Totally.
Is exactly because of that, because we think like, oh, if I lay down 30 minutes to take the space to do that vision, that's 30 minutes that I could have been moving the project forward, or posting on social media like marketing experts say I'm supposed to do, or spending time with my children when they've been with the nanny all day. Like, how dare I go take a moment to myself in you know, but that literally is that is it. that
is it.
Minutes of doing that is how you don't miss the boat, is how everything deepens and aligns and expands.
I mean, legit, taking time to do a 30-minute meditation can save you 3 years of like going the wrong direction. I mean, I've seen it so clearly in my own life.
Me too. This is why I did not feel ready at all to start this membership program. And I, through this whole pandemic, have felt like it's been the 1 hour of time I've carved out to do a sacred practice, and for me to be in sisterhood and to workshop it. It changed my life. It opened up the doors where everything was full of fear and anxiety and uncertainty. It was just getting that 1 hour time on the calendar and showing up, whether that was like meeting you and Nisha and the girls to like chat for an hour, even though we were like all crazed and not know what, like those moments of conversation were the most impactful. And I just feel like we're the least likely to carve out that space. And it's when for me, I have to put it on the calendar and commit to it and just show up no matter what.
Yeah,
and then everything changes.
Yep.
Yeah. I know you also, this would be cool to share before we close, because we're like have had such a long walk. It's 11:11 my time, by the way, which feels like a perfect time.
Love it.
I know you have a Sacred Start guide, which I think would be really relevant for this.
Yeah.
If ladies want to find that and connect with that in this way as some support to make that space happen.
Yeah, so it's just at Sarah Jenks. If you just go to sarahjenks.com
I'll put the
and
link.
like scroll down, it's right there. It's a great guide. Like, not only do we talk about the actual practice, but I spend a lot of time on how to make time for the practice, both like doing the inner work and the outer work around our families, and really having our families respect that space and creating boundaries. And, you know, like I have 3 young children, 6, 5, and 2, and I'm alone in the mornings. So like Jonathan is not here. So, and I've trained them to all stay away until 6:30 in the morning. And I had this like really sweet moment the other day where I heard Hazel got up at 5:45 and I heard her calling for Marshall. Like, she even knows I'm not available in the morning.
Oh my God,
and
that's
so
amazing.
she was thirsty and called Marshall, and Marshall got her some water, and like she went and played in their room.
That's so sweet.
And I have needy children. Like, I don't
That's
have
like how you realize when you make the boundary and you are deserving of the support. Like, even your little children can get on board and take responsibility and support you. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. And like, that did not come easily. That wasn't like a natural thing. You know, it was like a month of training and boundary work. But now it's been like, you know, 9 months of me getting up every morning at 5:30, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So it's worth the investment.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This was everything I wanted it to be for myself and us and for the women listening.
I'm so glad.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for sharing all of you and your work with us and this conversation. So
You're
grateful.
so welcome. You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So ladies, I know if you just want to share with us anything that came up, reach out in whatever way. If you want to email me, and if there's things you want to say to Sarah and I, I'll forward along to her. Sarah is on Instagram, really active and engaging there. So you can find her on Instagram. I'll put the link below. I'm sure we'd both love, right, Sarah, to hear like anything that came up from today.
Oh my God, I love it. Like there's nothing I love more than hearing from women about what they saw in their vision, the magic that conspired afterwards. Like when we go into this space, all of a sudden in our waking life, wild things start to happen. And I love hearing about it.
I know. So do I. I love, love, love everything about hearing about the signs, the magic that happens. Beautiful. So ladies, please be in touch and let us know what happened in this walk and in your visualization if you feel called. And I just want to remind you that this conversation is exactly what I'm wanting to create in the Heartwork Collective, our spaces like this to deepen. So we had our live call about decision making where we did some awesome exercises. The replay to that's available if you didn't listen to it. Inside the Heartwork Collective, we'll be doing those live experiences as part of the work, carving out that space for ourselves and dropping from the head into our heart. And every once in a while, like today, I may want to deepen that conversation. And so this was a bonus addition to going a little deeper and bringing someone like Sarah in who can take us there and have those intimate moments with her. So if you love this experience, please make sure you're on the wait list when we open up the doors for the Heartwork Collective, and consider if it's the space that you're feeling called to. Sarah, thank you. I love you.
I love you.
Ladies, thank you. And we'll close there.
All right. Bye.